What if I told you that the life you're dreaming of, the confidence, the freedom, the success, isn't one big leap away, but just 1% away? Yes, one tiny choice, repeated, daily. That's it. Not motivation, not hustle, not waiting for the perfect moment. Just small, quiet improvements that no one notices until one day everyone does. Because success doesn't come from doing everything all at once. It comes from doing one small thing again and again until it changes who you are. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly how it works and how you can start using the 1% rule today to change your habits, your mindset, and your future. So if you're tired of starting over, if you're done with quick fixes and burnout, you're exactly where you need to be. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. Understanding the 1% rule. What if I told you that your life doesn't change overnight, but in tiny, quiet steps that no one sees? Just 1% better every single day. This is the 1% rule. And if you understand this, it will change your life forever. Let's begin by looking at why so many people struggle with change. We often believe transformation must be dramatic, a big goal, a radical shift, an overnight success story. But most meaningful change doesn't look like that. It looks like small, consistent action. Have you ever tried to completely overhaul your routine? Maybe starting a new diet, a strict gym schedule, or learning a new skill, only to quit after a few days? That's not a failure of discipline. That's the flaw of unsustainable pressure. The 1% rule works because it flips that model on its head. Instead of demanding massive change immediately, it asks, what's the smallest improvement you can make today? Here's the truth. Habits don't require motivation. They require a system. And when that system is built around small wins, it becomes nearly impossible to fail. Why? Because 1% better is achievable on your worst days, not just your best. Let's talk numbers. If you get just 1% better every single day, mathematically, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. It's not magic. It's math. Let me explain. Improving by just 1% a day, multiplied across 365 days, results in exponential growth. 1.01 raised to the power of 365 equals approximately 37.78. On the other hand, if you decline by just 1% a day, over a year you're left with nearly zero progress. That's the compounding power of small actions. The same principle that builds wealth over time in finance also applies to personal growth, habits, health, and mindset. As leadership expert John Maxwell once said, small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. Now, most people focus on macro goals, big, long-term targets. For example, I want to lose 10 kilograms. I want to be fluent in Spanish. I want to write a novel. But they fail to connect these macro goals to micro habits, the tiny daily actions that support them. Let's say you want to be healthier. A micro habit could be just 10 bodyweight squats while your coffee brews. Want to learn Spanish? Listen to a 5-minute podcast during your commute. Want to write a novel? Write just 100 words before bed. Each of these takes less than 5 minutes, but over time, they add up. These tiny actions reinforce your identity and reshape your behavior. Micro goals build momentum. Momentum builds belief. Belief changes behavior. Now let's look at real-world examples. Take Arjun. He wanted to lose weight, but instead of joining a gym for an intense 60-minute workout routine, he started with just 5 push-ups every morning. It felt manageable. That daily habit grew. Over time, it became 10 push-ups, then 20. 1 year later, he had lost 15 kilograms. He never needed to rely on willpower because his system grew naturally with him. Or Sarah. She wanted to learn a code. She didn't enroll in an expensive boot camp right away. She simply began by watching 5-minute coding tutorials on YouTube every evening. That small commitment grew into a full-blown study habit. Within a year, she had built enough skill and confidence to land a job in tech. And then there's Dev. He woke up with anxiety every morning. Instead of trying to fix his mood instantly, he began writing down one sentence of gratitude each day. One sentence became a paragraph. That paragraph became a habit. Eventually, journaling helped transform his mornings into peaceful, intentional time. These are the stories that reveal how powerful 1% changes can be. But why does this approach work when other systems fail? Chapter 2. The Science Behind the 1% Rule. If the 1% rule sounds too simple to be true, let's dive into the science that makes it work. Behind the scenes of every tiny decision you make is a complex network of systems, mental, emotional, and neurological, all shaping your behavior without you even realizing it. Let's start with the brain. The human brain loves efficiency. It's constantly looking for ways to conserve energy. That's why habits exist in the first place. They're your brain's shortcut to save effort. When you repeat an action, the brain begins to automate it. Over time, it moves from conscious effort to subconscious routine. This automation happens in the basal ganglia, a part of your brain responsible for habit formation. Neuroscientists have found that when you do something repeatedly, specific neural pathways are strengthened. Think of it like carving a trail through a forest. The more you walk the same path, the clearer and easier it becomes. Now, here's where the 1% rule fits in. Most people try to change everything at once: new habits, new routines, new identity. But the brain resists this. It's overwhelmed, confused, and threatened by sudden change. That's why most New Year's resolutions fail by February. Small, incremental changes, however, bypass the brain's resistance. A 1% improvement doesn't trigger the fear center of your brain. It feels safe, easy, doable, so you stick with it. And that consistency rewires your brain. Behavioral scientist B.J. Fogg from Stanford explains this beautifully in his Tiny Habits method. He says, if you want to create long-term change, you have to make the habit so small that it feels ridiculous to skip it. That's what the 1% rule does. Let's talk about dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward. As the streak grows, you'll feel more motivated not to break it. Why? Because you don't want to lose your progress. This taps into both psychology and gamification, making your progress visible and rewarding. Now let's look at one more layer: the power of environment. Your surroundings heavily influence your habits. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll scroll at night. If your journal is on your pillow, you'll write. The 1% rule becomes easier to apply when your environment supports your goals. Design your environment for success. Want to drink more water? Leave a bottle on your desk. Want to read more? Keep a book within reach. Small environmental cues prompt small actions, which add up. So to summarize, the brain loves efficiency. Repeated small actions become automatic. Dopamine rewards consistency. Tiny wins feel good, so we repeat them. Identity shapes behavior. Your habits are a mirror of who you believe you are. Loss aversion can protect progress. Track your wins to keep the streak alive. Environment dictates behavior. Shape your space to make 1% easier. The science is clear. Change doesn't happen through willpower. It happens through structure, through repetition, through frictionless micro-decisions. That's the secret most people miss. You don't need a new life. You need a new system, a new process, a new direction, just 1 degree better today than yesterday. And when you start stacking those 1% improvements, your brain, your identity, and your outcomes will follow. So don't underestimate a single step, because that's all it takes to start a new path. What if the future you dream of isn't a matter of luck, but of design? Welcome to Chapter 3, Building a 1% Life, where we take all the theory, science, and mindset shifts and turn them into action. Tangible, real, step by step. Because transformation isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built in quiet ones, when nobody's watching, and you choose to do something slightly better than you did yesterday. So how do you actually live a 1% life? Let's break it down. Step 1, clarity. Most people wander. They don't know what they're aiming for, so every small effort feels meaningless. Clarity means asking yourself, what does a 1% better version of my life look like? Not some fantasy, just a version that's slightly more peaceful, healthy, focused, and fulfilled. Write down. Not in broad goals like be rich or be happy. Get specific. Visualize a day in that life. What time do you wake up? What do you eat? How do you speak to people? What do you work on? Because small improvements need a clear direction. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels. Step 2. Pick one area. 1. Most people fail because they try to fix everything at once. But change multiplies when it's focused. If you improve your sleep by 1%, everything else improves. If you reduce clutter by 1%, your mind clears. If you speak more kindly to yourself, your decisions shift. So choose one arena. Just one. That's where your 1% begins. Step 3. Lower the bar. Then lower it again. Your habit should be so small, so laughably simple that your brain can't say no. If you want to get fit, don't start with an hour-long gym session. Start by putting on your shoes and walking for 3 minutes. Want to read more? Start with one paragraph. Want to meditate? One deep breath. Because it's not about intensity. It's about identity. And identities are shaped by action, not ambition. Step 4. Design your environment. Your surroundings are stronger than your willpower. If you want to scroll less, move your phone out of reach. If you want to eat better, prep one healthy snack. If you want to focus, clean your desk, just one item at a time. Your space is either working for you or against you. So build a world where the 1% choice is the default, not the exception. Step 5. Make it visible. Progress you can't see is progress you won't believe. Use a habit tracker, a notebook, an app, a wall calendar. It doesn't matter how you do it, just make it tangible. Each check mark is a tiny piece of proof, a vote, a signal that you're showing up, not for perfection, for momentum. Step 6. Stack your wins. Once your first habit feels natural, automatic even, add another. Don't force it. Let it grow. You wake up and stretch? Great. Next week, add 1 glass of water. The week after, 1 page of journaling. You're not building a routine. You're building a rhythm. Each habit becomes a beat in the soundtrack of your life. And over time, that rhythm becomes a symphony. Step 7. Protect your energy. The 1% life isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters with full presence. That means saying no more often, stepping away from noise, leaving toxic environments, choosing quality over quantity, because your energy is your fuel. And when it's depleted, nothing works. Your best life isn't built in burnout. It's built in balance. Step 8. Reset quickly. You will fall off track. Everyone does. The difference is how fast you come back. Miss one day, it's a blip. Miss 2, it's a trend. Build a reset ritual. Something small that brings you back, like reading a quote, listening to calming music, or simply taking one deep breath. Your power isn't in never breaking. It's in always returning. Step 9. Reflect weekly. Once a week, ask, what worked? What felt heavy? What would 1% better look like next week? Write it down. Don't overanalyze. Just notice. Adjust. Continue. Because a 1% life isn't just about doing. It's about learning, about noticing the patterns and improving them gently. Step 10. Repeat. Forever. There is no finish line. You don't arrive at the 1% life. You live it. You grow with it. Some seasons are faster, some slower. That's okay, because this isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than you were, one tiny step at a time. And in time, things begin to compound. Your body feels stronger. Your thoughts grow clearer. Your confidence expands. Your choices align. Your life changes. Not overnight, but quietly, sustainably, deeply. That's the 1% life. And it's waiting for you to begin today. So what's your next 1%? Because the life you want isn't out of reach. It's just one better choice away. Chapter 4. The compound effect in action. Imagine standing at the edge of a quiet forest path. To your left, the trail winds uphill, slowly but steadily. It looks ordinary, unimpressive, just trees, silence, and dirt. But if you take one step, and then another, and another, after weeks and months, you'll look back and realize you're not even in the same place anymore. You're somewhere completely new. This is the power of the compound effect. And in this chapter, you'll see how 1% choices, seemingly small and forgettable, create massive, irreversible shifts over time. Because the truth is this: the most powerful force in the universe isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's momentum. Let's begin. The compound effect works like gravity in reverse. Instead of pulling you down, it pulls you forward, but only if you stay in motion. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you improve just 1% each day. That doesn't sound like much. Most people wouldn't even notice. But mathematically, if you get 1% better every day for a year, you don't just end up 365% better. You end up 37 times better. Yes, 3,700% improvement. Why? Because each improvement builds on the last. You're not just stacking, you're multiplying. This is what separates those who grow from those who plateau. Not intensity, not talent, but consistency over time. Let's go deeper. Most people quit because progress doesn't happen fast enough. They start eating healthy, no change. They meditate, still anxious. They write for a week, still no audience. So they say, this doesn't work. But here's the secret. Compounding is invisible at first. Picture a melting ice cube. It's sitting in a cold room at 28 degrees. You raise the temperature to 29. Nothing happens. 30, nothing. 31, still frozen. But then, at 32 degrees, it begins to melt. Was it the 1 extra degree that did it? No, it was the accumulation of heat. The compounding of tiny changes you couldn't see until everything changed at once. That's how growth works. You won't notice the shift at first. Nobody will. It'll feel like you're walking in circles. But if you keep going, there will be a tipping point. And that's where transformation happens. Let's look at real-world examples. There are two people, same job, same habits. One of them decides to cut 100 calories a day, a small change. He drinks water instead of soda, walks for 10 minutes, reads for 5. Nothing happens for weeks, maybe months. But in 2 years, he's 20 pounds lighter. His mind is sharper. He's sleeping better. He has more energy. That tiny choice became a new reality. The other person does the opposite. Adds 1 soda, sleeps late, scrolls more, just a little. After 2 years, they're 20 pounds heavier, more tired, more irritable, more disconnected from their goals. Neither of them made massive decisions, but their lives are now completely different. That's the compound effect. Now let's look at finances, a common example, but one with powerful lessons. Imagine you invest just 100 Indian rupees per day in something that earns 10% interest annually. Doesn't sound like much, right? But over 20 years, without doing anything fancy, that tiny daily amount grows to over 23 Indian rupees lakhs. Why? Because interest compounds on interest. The earlier you start, the bigger the result. Your life works the same way. A 5-minute daily walk becomes better health. A 1-line journal becomes deep self-awareness. A 10-minute reading habit turns into a new career. Each tiny act creates interest, and over time, that interest multiplies. But here's the key. Compounding doesn't just apply to good habits. It applies to bad ones too. Small negative choices also multiply. Cheap workouts, lie to yourself, waste time, delay dreams. One day won't ruin you, but repeated, it builds regret, clutter, stress, weakness, and most dangerously, it normalizes failure. Your brain learns that skipping matters less than showing up. But here's the truth. The small things are never small. They're the seeds of your future, planted today. And whether they grow into forests or weeds is entirely up to you. Let's bring it back to identity. Every time you follow through on a small habit, you reinforce a belief. I'm someone who shows up. I am someone who improves. I am someone who finishes. This internal identity compounds too. Confidence builds. Discipline strengthens. Self-trust deepens. Before long, you're not just doing better, you are better. And here's what's beautiful about compounding. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. One missed day won't ruin you, but quitting will. Stay in motion. Keep the streak alive. Keep showing up. Now, let's talk about time, the great multiplier. You see, when you're younger or just starting out, small efforts seem pointless. You're in a rush. You want results now. But growth doesn't work on your schedule. It works on nature's schedule. It takes time for seeds to sprout, for trees to take root, for momentum to build. So don't rush it. Respect the process. The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is today. Because every day you delay the compound interest of your life. There's a famous quote by Darren Hardy. Small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals radical difference. That's the formula. And it applies to everything. Your health, your career, your relationships, your mindset, your happiness. The 1% rule is how you feed the compound effect. Every small act is a drop of water. And one day, that cup overflows into transformation. So here's what I want you to remember. You don't need big wins. You don't need to change overnight. You don't need permission or motivation. You just need to make one small choice today, and then again tomorrow. Walk for 5 minutes. Write one paragraph. Say one kind thing. Turn off one distraction. Read one page. Save one coin. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The world won't notice at first, but one day they will. And so will you. Because your life won't just feel different. It will be different. And all it took was one tiny step. Over and over again. That's the compound effect. That's how empires are built. Quietly, patiently, 1% at a time. Chapter 5. Identity Change and the 1% Rule. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the person you want to become 5 years from now. What does that version of you look like? How do they walk, speak, think? How do they respond to setbacks? What kind of choices do they make on a normal day? Now, here's the real question. Are your current habits voting for that version of you or against it? Because here's what most people don't realize. Change doesn't begin with action. It begins with identity. You don't change your life by forcing different behavior. You change your life by becoming someone for whom that behavior is natural. And the 1% rule, those tiny, consistent improvements, is the most powerful tool to build a new identity from the inside out. Let's talk about how it works. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Not every vote matters equally, but over time the votes stack, and eventually they form a majority. If you write one sentence a day, you're voting to become a writer. If you practice gratitude each morning, you're voting to become a grateful person. If you choose the stairs instead of the elevator, you're voting for a healthier version of you. The identity doesn't arrive after the results. It's built in the moments you think no one sees. And here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their behavior without changing their beliefs. They try to eat healthy, but still think, I have no discipline. They try to start a business, but still believe, I'm not cut out for this. They try to wake up early, but say, I'm not a morning person. But here's the truth. Your identity drives your actions. If you see yourself as lazy, you'll act lazy. If you see yourself as resilient, you'll persist. If you see yourself as capable, you'll take action. So the first shift is internal. Before the habit becomes external, the belief has to become real. Now let's talk about how the 1% rule helps you build this belief system from scratch. You don't wake up one day and believe you're disciplined. You earn it. You show up when it's hard. You follow through when it's inconvenient. You do the small thing you promise yourself, and then you do it again. Each small win is like laying a brick. At first, the wall looks invisible. But over time, those bricks form something solid, something permanent, a new identity. This is why habits matter so much more than goals. Goals are outcomes. Habits are votes for identity. Want to run a marathon? That's a goal. Want to become a runner? That's identity. When your habits align with your desired identity, the process becomes sustainable. You're not forcing change, you're embodying it. Now, let's dive into a powerful truth. You act in alignment with who you believe you are, even if that belief is false. If deep down you believe you're a failure, you'll sabotage success. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll reject love. If you believe you're not creative, you'll never sit down to write. But here's the secret. You can change those beliefs slowly, gently, consistently. How? Through evidence. Your brain doesn't need permission. It needs proof. So you give it proof. Tiny, undeniable proof. One decision at a time. Think about this. If someone told you they were a kind person, but they never helped others, never offered a kind word, and never listened, would you believe them? Of course not. Why? Because identity is proven, not declared. Now, flip that back on yourself. You don't need to say you're confident. You need to do the kinds of things confident people do, even if it's just a whisper of effort. Standtat. Speak clearly. Prepare before the meeting. Then do it again tomorrow. Soon, your brain starts to notice. Hey, I'm actually doing this. And that's where the shift happens. Let's look at some common identity upgrades through the lens of the 1% rule. 1. From procrastinator action taker. Start by doing just 2 minutes of the task you're avoiding. The moment you start, you change the story. I take action, even when I don't feel like it. 2. From unfit active. Put on your workout shoes. Stretch for 5 minutes. Walk around the block. Each day says, I'm someone who moves. 3. From disorganized intentional. Start with a single to-do. Clear just one surface. Tell yourself, I bring order to my space and my time. These aren't just actions. They're identity anchors. You're not faking it. You're practicing it until it becomes you. But what if you feel like a fraud? What if your old identity keeps pulling you back? That's normal. That resistance is your old self clinging to its story. You're not broken. You're just rewiring. Your mind loves familiarity. Even if that familiarity is pain. Even if it's self-doubt. Even if it's mediocrity. Because to the brain, familiar equals safe. So yes, your new actions will feel awkward at first. But awkward isn't wrong. Awkward is growth in disguise. You're shedding an identity that no longer fits. And just like new shoes, the new one might pinch a little. Wear it anyway. Here's a beautiful idea from author James Clear. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Not every vote has to be a landslide. But over time, the majority wins. And if you want to become someone different, you don't need to convince yourself with mantras. You need to build a case with evidence. Let your actions speak louder than your doubts. Let your habits override your history. Chapter 6. Designing your environment for 1% wins. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And the most powerful system, the one quietly shaping your behavior every single day, is your environment. Not your willpower, not your intentions, your environment. Because whether you realize it or not, your surroundings are influencing your choices, nudging your behavior, rewarding your patterns, reinforcing your identity. And if you want to live a 1% better life, a life of quiet, sustainable progress, you can't rely on self-control. You have to design the space around you to make the right decision, the easy one. This is how high performers stay consistent. Not by doing more, but by needing less effort to do what matters. Let's talk about how you can design that kind of environment. One that practically pulls you toward your future self. Start with this question. Is your environment aligned with the person you want to become? Look around your room, your desk, your phone, your kitchen. Do those spaces encourage your growth or distract from it? Do they support deep focus or invite constant interruption? Do they reflect the identity you're building or the habits you're trying to escape? Let's go deeper. Here's the truth. Your brain responds to cues, and your environment is made of cues. Cues trigger cravings. Cravings lead to actions. Actions lead to rewards, and rewards reinforce the cue. This is the habit loop, and it begins with what you see. So if your phone is the first thing you see in the morning, you'll reach for it. Not because you're weak, but because it's the cue your brain has learned. If your workout clothes are buried at the bottom of a drawer, you'll skip the gym, not because you're lazy, but because the friction is too high. If your snacks are on the counter and your water is hidden away, you'll eat what's available, because that's what humans do. We default to convenience. That's why environment design is not about motivation. It's about removing friction for good habits and increasing friction for bad ones. Make the right choice easy. Make the wrong choice hard. That's the 1% way. Let's get practical. Here are 5 powerful ways to design an environment that helps you win without willpower. 1. Prime your space for your habits. If you want to write more, don't just schedule time to write. Prepare the space. Open the dock. Clear distractions. Set the mood. If you want to journal nightly, place your journal on your pillow each morning. So when you go to bed, it's already there, waiting. Want to exercise in the morning? Lay out your clothes the night before. Set up your mat. Put your shoes by the door. Preparation isn't just planning. It's reducing resistance. It's making your future decision easy before you have to make it. 2. Create visual cues for the identity you're building. Out of sight, out of mind. In sight, in action. If you want to read more, leave a book on your desk, not tucked away on a shelf. If you want to hydrate, put a glass of water next to your keyboard. Want to be more mindful? Place a reminder card on your mirror. Pause. Breathe. Begin again. These aren't decorations. They're anchors. Visual triggers that align your environment with your values. Each one whispers, "This is who you are." 3. Hide the cues for habits you want to break. Sometimes the best way to build better habits is to make old ones harder to access. If social media is your vice, log out. Remove the apps from your home screen. Add an extra password. If junk food calls your name, don't keep it on the counter. Store it in an inconvenient place, or don't buy it at all. If the TV pulls you in, unplug it after use. Put the remote in another room. You're not eliminating options. You're creating intentional distance. And in that space, you regain control. 4. Design one environment per habit. Context matters. Your brain associates behaviors with locations. That's why you feel sleepy in bed, productive at your desk, hungry at the kitchen table. So, if possible, assign a single environment to each habit. Read only in a reading chair. Meditate in a specific corner. Write in a distraction-free zone. Eat only at the table, not the couch, not your bed. When each space serves a single purpose, your brain builds faster, deeper associations. You enter focus mode more easily. You switch gears with less friction, and that turns effort into rhythm. 5. Audit your digital environment. Your physical space matters, but in today's world, your digital environment may matter even more. What does your phone home screen say about you? Is it a battlefield of dopamine hits or a tool for focus? Clear off apps you don't need. Turn off non-essential notifications. Use grayscale mode if necessary. Install blockers if you need to buy back your attention. Your devices should serve your goals, not hijack them. This is modern discipline. Not resisting temptation, but removing it. Now, let's talk about energy. Environment isn't just what you see. It's also what you feel. Noise, lighting, temperature, all of these shape your mood and focus. Want deeper sleep? Lower the lights an hour before bed. Keep the room cool and quiet. Want sharper focus? Use natural light. Play background music that calms but doesn't distract. Light a candle before deep work to create a ritual. These sensory cues help your brain shift gears. They tell your nervous system, it's time for this. Your body listens to the space it's in. So give it the right message. Now, here's a mindset shift that changes everything. Don't try to control your behavior. Design it. If your environment is working against you, even the strongest willpower will eventually fail. But when your environment works for you, success becomes the default. Not because you tried harder, but because you made better the obvious, easiest path. That's the essence of the 1% rule. Don't push harder. Stack the deck in your favor. Here's a quick story. There was a hospital that wanted to improve hydration among patients and staff. They didn't create a campaign. They didn't lecture people about drinking more water. They simply moved water bottles to eye level in refrigerators and placed them near checkouts and high-traffic areas. Water sales went up 26%. Soda sales dropped. Why? Because behavior follows design. The healthier choice became easier to see, reach, and choose. No pressure, no resistance, just smart design. That same principle works for you. Let's end with a vision. Imagine a life where progress doesn't feel hard, Because your environment is pulling you forward. Where your spaces reflect your values. Where your tools support your goals. Where your mornings start calm and your evenings end in peace. That life doesn't require more discipline. It requires better design. One change at a time. One object moved. One habit made easier. Each 1% adds up. And soon, your environment becomes a silent coach, guiding you, encouraging you, removing friction, and helping you become the person you were always meant to be. You don't need to fix yourself. You just need to fix the space around you. And everything will start to shift. Chapter 7. How to build momentum with the 1% rule. Momentum. It's that invisible force that makes good habits easier and bad habits harder to shake. It's what turns effort into flow, resistance into rhythm, hesitation into movement. And when it comes to the 1% rule, those small, consistent steps you take each day, momentum is what turns them into lasting change. But here's what no one tells you. Momentum doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with movement. Tiny, unimpressive, repetitive movement. Because the moment you act, no matter how small the step, you shift the inertia of your life. And everything gets a little bit easier. Let's break down how to build that momentum slowly, patiently, powerfully, using the 1% rule. Step 1. Start smaller than you think you should. Most people fail to gain momentum because they start too big. They begin with ambition, not sustainability. They say, I'll wake up at 5 a.m. I'll go to the gym 6 days a week. I'll meditate for 30 minutes. And for a day or two, they do. Then life happens. The streak breaks, and the motivation disappears. Momentum isn't built from giant leaps. It's built from tiny steps that feel too easy to fail. So instead of meditating for 30 minutes, start with 3 deep breaths. Instead of writing a whole chapter, write 1 sentence. Instead of a 60-minute workout, put on your shoes and stretch. These actions feel small, almost silly, but they do something powerful. They tell your brain, this is who I am now. And that shift is where momentum begins. Step 2, stack your habits. If your habits feel disconnected or random, momentum is hard to build. But when one habit flows naturally into the next, like links in a chain, the energy carries over. This is called habit stacking, and it's one of the most powerful tools in the 1% arsenal. Here's how it works. You anchor a new habit onto something you already do consistently. For example, after I brush my teeth, I'll stretch for 30 seconds. After I make coffee, I'll open my journal. After I shut down my laptop, I'll review my daily wins. By tying the new behavior to an old one, you reduce decision fatigue. You create rhythm, and rhythm builds momentum. Don't build random habits. Build chains of behavior. Step 3. Track the smallest wins. Progress is invisible until you make it visible. That's why tracking matters. Not to judge yourself, but to see yourself. To recognize the quiet progress that would otherwise go unnoticed. Start a habit tracker. Use a notebook, a wall calendar, a simple checklist. Each time you complete your 1% action, mark it. It could be an X, a check mark, a sticker, a colored square. What matters is this. You see the streak forming, and the longer it grows, the more motivated you'll feel to protect it. This is called the streak effect, and it taps into a deep psychological bias, loss aversion. We don't like losing progress, even small, symbolic progress. So a simple calendar can become a powerful source of momentum. Every checkmark whispers, you're doing it. Keep going. Step 4, celebrate early, celebrate often. One of the most overlooked ways to build momentum is also the simplest. Celebrate, not at the finish line, but at the starting line, the halfway point, the messy middle. Your brain is wired for rewards. And when you celebrate even the tiniest win, you get a shot of dopamine, the motivation molecule. That chemical hit creates a feedback loop. The more you celebrate, the more you want to repeat the action. So after your 1-minute walk, smile. Say yes. Fist bump yourself in the mirror. After journaling 1 sentence, breathe in and say, I showed up. It may feel strange, but it works. Small rewards create emotional momentum. They make the habit feel good, which makes it stick. Don't wait for permission. Celebrate your progress now. Step 5. Set a low bar and beat it daily. Most people set the bar too high and then feel like failures when they don't reach it. But if you set a bar so low you can't fail, something surprising happens. You often go beyond it. You say, I'll write for 2 minutes, and end up writing for 20. You say, I'll do 1 push-up, and do 5. You say, I'll read 1 page, and finish the chapter. Why? Because action breeds action. And once you start, momentum takes over. So set ridiculously low standards at first. Let consistency be your only goal. When it's easy to win, you win more often. And those wins build momentum faster than any high-pressure goal ever could. Step 6. Use momentum to bounce back faster. Momentum doesn't mean you'll never fall. It means you'll rise faster when you do. The beauty of the 1% rule is that it gives you permission to begin again, without shame. Missed a day? Begin again. Fell off for a week? One small step today puts you back on track. The 1% mindset isn't about perfection. It's about identity. You're someone who comes back. You're someone who returns. You're someone who doesn't let failure become final. That mindset, combined with small, consistent action, creates what psychologists call resilience momentum. Not just forward movement, but bounce-back energy. It's what keeps you going when discipline fades and life gets messy. And it's the reason you'll succeed where others quit. Step 7. Let time work for you. When you stack enough 1% wins, something strange happens. The gains start to grow faster. The habits become easier. The energy snowballs. This is the compound effect, and we'll explore it more in the next chapter. But for now, remember this. Momentum is slow at first, quiet, invisible, but give it time, and it becomes unstoppable. It's like pushing a giant flywheel. Hard at first, heavy, stuck. Then it turns. Then again, then again. And with each rotation, it gets easier and faster until it spins on its own. That's momentum. And that's what the 1% rule gives you. Not instant results, but unstoppable direction. Let's end with a shift in how you see yourself. You're not lazy. You are not broken. You don't lack discipline. You've just been trying to sprint when you were meant to walk, to leap when the power is in the step. And now you know the truth. That small actions create massive change. That momentum is built, not wished for. That every time you show up, even when it's tiny, even when it's late, you're building something bigger than the action itself. You're building trust with yourself, and that trust becomes your power. That's how people change their lives. One moment, one habit, one tiny win at a time. Chapter 8. The Compound Effect, when 1% becomes a breakthrough. In the beginning, your effort feels invisible. You show up, you try, you improve, just a little, and nothing really changes. Your body looks the same. Your income stays the same. Your habits don't seem to matter. And you wonder, is this even working? This is where most people give up. They confuse slow progress with no progress. They walk away from the path right before the curve turns upward. But here's what they never learned. Change is never linear. When you improve by just 1% every day, you don't get 365% better after a year. You get 37 times better. That's the power of compounding. And it changes everything. The ice cube metaphor. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a freezing room. It's 25 degrees. You turn the thermostat up to 26. Nothing happens. You go to 27. Still nothing. 28. 29. 30. No change. Then 31. The cube is still frozen. But at 32 degrees, click, it begins to melt. Did the change happen at 32 degrees? No. It was the accumulation of heat, of effort, of invisible progress, all leading to that moment of transformation. Most people quit at 31 degrees, not knowing they were one tiny degree away from change. This is how the compound effect works. You don't see the payoff until suddenly you do. Why the beginning feels so hard. The early phase of any habit is called the valley of latent potential. It's where you're doing the right things, but seeing none of the rewards. You're walking every day, but your weight stays the same. You're writing daily, but your audience is small. You're saving money, but the account barely grows. This is the delay zone, and if you don't understand it, you'll assume your actions aren't working. But if you do understand it, if you know the ice cube is almost ready to melt, you keep going. You trust the process. You fall in love with showing up. Because that's where the compound effect lives. Not in big wins, but in tiny, consistent ones, repeated long enough to matter. The math of 1%. Let's break it down. If you improve by just 1% a day, whether in skill, mindset, or action, you don't grow in a straight line. You grow exponentially. Why? Because tomorrow, you're not building from zero. You're building from the new baseline. Today's 1% stacks on top of yesterday's 1%. It's the difference between addition and multiplication. And over time, that compounding becomes unstoppable. Here's the reality. 1% better every day for a year equals 37x growth. 1% worse every day equals you lose 97% of your ability. Small actions, repeated, don't just move you forward. They either multiply your future or quietly subtract from it. That's the choice you make every day. Habits are like interest. Think of habits like money in a savings account. You don't notice much at first, a few cents here and there. But as the balance grows, so does the interest. And eventually, it starts to snowball. You wake up one day and realize your habits have paid off, not just in results, but in identity. You're not someone who's trying anymore. You're someone who already is. And that's what compound interest does. It makes you wealthy, not just in money, but in discipline, clarity, consistency, and confidence. The invisible work is never wasted. Sometimes, it feels like your effort disappears into the void. You eat clean, but no change. You practice, but still make mistakes. You learn, but still forget. But here's the truth most people never hear. Every action counts. Every workout you don't quit builds stamina. Every book you finish sharpens thinking. Every conversation you show up for builds trust. The invisible work is never wasted. It's being stored, not ignored. And one day, it breaks through the surface like bamboo. You water bamboo for months, nothing. Then one day, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Did it happen overnight? No. It happened underground, silently the whole time. Your progress is the same. You are becoming, even when you don't see it. The ripple effect of tiny wins. The 1% rule doesn't just change your habits. It changes your future. Because every small win creates a ripple effect, impacting things you can't even predict. You drink more water and sleep better. You sleep better and focus more. You focus more and get more done in less time. You get more done and feel less anxious. That one tiny decision to drink a glass of water becomes a domino that tips your whole life forward. You don't need to control everything. Just start one ripple. Let momentum do the rest. The power of patience. Compound growth demands patience. But patience doesn't mean waiting and hoping. It means acting consistently while trusting time. You don't rush a tree to grow. You don't yell at a seed to become fruit. You water. You tend. You trust the process. It's not flashy, but it's powerful. And it's what separates those who succeed from those who start over again and again. If you can master the patience to let small actions stack, you can master anything. Because most people chase intensity. The 1% rule builds integrity, not the kind that impresses others, the kind that impresses your future self. Your future is compounding right now. Let's take a deep breath. Let's step back and realize where we are. Right now, in this very moment, your choices are compounding. Every small action you take today is a vote for the person you're becoming tomorrow. You are building a body, a mindset, a reputation, a future, not through big leaps, but through quiet consistency. You don't have to do more. You just have to keep going. The compound effect will handle the rest. You'll look back a year from now, and people will ask, "How did you change so much?" And you'll smile, because you'll know the truth. You didn't do everything. You just did something every single day. And that's what changed everything. Chapter 9. Keystone Habits. The small actions that change everything. Some habits are ordinary. Brush your teeth. Check your phone. Make your bed. But some habits are different. They're not just actions. They're multipliers. Change one, and everything changes. They're called keystone habits. And in this chapter, we're going to explore how a single shift can create a chain reaction, transforming your health, your focus, your relationships, and your future. What is a keystone habit? In architecture, the keystone is the stone at the top of an arch, the one that holds everything together. Remove it, and the entire structure collapses. In life, a keystone habit works the same way. It's not just a good habit. It's a foundational habit, one that influences dozens of other decisions, often without you even realizing it. Change it, and it changes you. Charles Duhigg and the Power of Keystone Habits. Why keystone habits work. Here's the secret. Keystone habits create a shift in self-image. You go from, I want to be healthy, to I'm someone who takes care of my body. And when that belief locks in, your decisions follow it. You eat better, not because you have to, but because it matches who you are. You manage your time more wisely, because that's what the new version of you does. This is the difference between willpower and identity. Keystone habits change your story. And once your story changes, you're A. In The Power of Habit, author Charles Duhigg explained how certain habits carry more weight. He studied people who began exercising, not intensely, just a few times a week. Unexpectedly, their lives began improving in areas unrelated to fitness. They started eating healthier. They used their credit cards less. They procrastinated less at work. They slept better. Why? Because exercising was a keystone habit. It built a new identity, one rooted in discipline, health, and control. And that identity leaked into every part of their lives. Why keystone habits work. Here's the secret. Keystone habits create a shift in self-image. You go from, I want to be healthy, to I'm someone who takes care of my body. And when that belief locks in, your decisions follow it. You eat better, not because you have to, but because it matches who you are. You manage your time more wisely, because that's what the new version of you does. This is the difference between willpower and identity. Keystone habits change your story. And once your story changes, your actions align. Small action, massive impact. Let's take an example. Making your bed. It seems like nothing, just straightening sheets, but it sets the tone for order, for completion, for control. You start the day with a win. A tiny declaration, I take care of my space. That small act often triggers more. You tidy your desk. You write your to-do list. You drink a glass of water. One action becomes a rhythm. One rhythm becomes a standard. And that standard starts shaping your identity from the inside out. That's the power of a keystone habit. How to identify your keystone habits. Not every habit is a keystone for every person. So how do you find yours? Start with this question. Which small habit, when I do it, makes everything else feel easier, cleaner, or more in control? For some, it's waking up early, journaling, stretching, planning tomorrow tonight. If you've ever had a day where you did that one thing and everything flowed better, that's your clue. That's your keystone. Build around it. Keystone habits and emotional energy. We often think of productivity as a time problem, but more often, it's an energy problem. The right habit doesn't just save time. It gives back energy. For example, a 10-minute morning walk can elevate your mood for hours. A clean workspace can lower anxiety and raise clarity. A nightly journal can clear your head and help you sleep. These aren't just nice things to do. They're performance multipliers. Keystone habits reduce emotional friction. And when life feels smoother, growth happens faster. Keystone habits and identity change. Here's a subtle truth. We don't rise to our goals. We fall to our habits. And those habits are driven by identity. If you want to create deep, lasting change, don't just act differently. Believe differently. Every time you complete a keystone habit, you're voting for a new identity. Every time you run, you vote for I'm an athlete. Every time you save, you vote for, I'm financially responsible. Every time you meditate, you vote for, I'm centered and calm. You don't need 100% belief at the start. You just need to keep casting the vote. Eventually, the belief will catch up. The domino effect. Keystone habits unlock a cascade of improvement. Let's say your keystone habit is reading 10 pages each morning. You start to wake up earlier to fit it in. Drink water instead of coffee. Take notes. Reflect. Think deeply. That's not just reading. That's building discipline. That's quieting the noise. That's raising your standard for what a morning looks like. That's transformation through one decision. That's why we don't chase motivation. We build one keystone habit and let it do the heavy lifting. How to lock it in. Once you've identified a keystone habit, how do you make it stick? 1. Make it easy. Reduce resistance. If it's journaling, leave a notebook open on your pillow. If it's walking, lay out your shoes the night before. 2. Anchor it. Attach it to something you already do. After brushing your teeth, you meditate. After breakfast, you plan your top 3 tasks. 3. Track it. Use a simple check mark or calendar X. Not to be perfect, but to stay consistent. 4. Celebrate it. Smile. Breathe. Acknowledge the win. That emotion builds reinforcement. Small ritual. Big reward. Let go of all or nothing. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do 10 things every day. You need to do one small thing that shifts your direction. One habit that reminds you, I'm someone who chooses growth. Even when it's hard. Even when it's quiet. The magic of keystone habits is not their size. It's their leverage. They unlock everything else. You stop chasing change and start becoming it. Recap the keystone habit effect. Let's take a breath and bring it together. Keystone habits create identity change. They influence emotional energy, decision-making, and mindset. They ripple outward, unlocking dozens of positive outcomes. You don't need more willpower. You need one right habit repeated daily. Find it, protect it, nurture it, and let it change you. Not overnight, but over time. Because one tiny action, done every day, can change your entire life. Chapter 10. Resistance, Why We Quit, and How to Keep Going. You've been here before. You start with excitement, a new goal, a new habit, a new vision of yourself. And then, quietly, invisibly, something pushes back. You skip one day, then 2. You lose momentum, and suddenly, you feel like you're back at 0. That invisible force? It has a name. Resistance. And if you don't understand it, you'll mistake it for laziness, weakness, or failure. But it's not. It's normal. And in this chapter, we're going to expose it. Not just so you can fight it, but so you can finally stop quitting on yourself. What is resistance? Resistance is the internal friction between who you are now and who you want to become. It shows up as doubt. Who am I to try this? Delay. I'll start tomorrow. Distraction. Endless scrolling. Fake urgency. Discomfort. That heavy, invisible weight in your chest. Stephen Pressfield, author of The War of Art, says, resistance will tell you anything to keep you from doing your work. It will perjure, fabricate. It will seduce you with sex, money, power, fame. It will promise whatever, get into whatever, to stop you from your calling. Resistance is always lying and always full of it. Resistance isn't weakness. It's proof that you're doing something that matters. Why resistance feels so real? Here's the truth. The brain is wired for safety, not growth. Every time you try to step forward, create, build, improve, your brain scans for risk. Change feels unsafe, even if it's good change. So the brain whispers, stay in your comfort zone. Let's do it later. This won't work. It's not that you're broken. It's that your biology is outdated. And if you listen, you'll stay stuck. Not because you can't do it, but because you keep waiting to feel ready. Here's the secret. You will never feel ready, but you don't need readiness. You need rhythm. Discipline, motivation. Motivation is loud and unreliable. Discipline is quiet and steady. When resistance kicks in, most people wait for inspiration. But the 1% life doesn't run on emotion. It runs on design. The question isn't, how do I feel today? It's, what's the smallest step I can take today, no matter what? You're not trying to win a war. You're trying to win the moment in front of you. That's how you build a streak. That's how you build momentum. That's how you beat resistance, by making progress feel easier than procrastination. The 2-minute rule. If resistance is screaming at you, simplify. Shrink the habit. Want to write? Open the document. That's it. Want to meditate? Sit down for 60 seconds. That's it. Want to work out? Do one stretch. That's it. The brain resists starting, not continuing. The moment you start, the friction fades. The voice quiets down, and you realize it wasn't that hard. It was just loud until you moved. Protecting your momentum. You will slip. That's not failure. That's part of the plan. Here's the mindset shift. Never miss twice. 1 miss? Normal. Life happens. 2. That's a pattern. That's where identity breaks. So instead of spiraling, anchor. Return to your baseline habit. Even if it's just 1%. Even if it's messy. You're not starting over. You're continuing the path, imperfectly. And over time, those recoveries build resilience. Don't wait to feel like it. Discipline isn't about doing the hard thing every day. It's about making the easy version of the hard thing and doing that instead. If you don't feel like writing, journal 1 sentence. If you don't feel like working out, do 1 push-up. It's not about maximizing effort. It's about maintaining identity. I'm the kind of person who shows up, even when it's boring, even when it's quiet, even when no one's watching. Because resistance isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign that what you're doing matters. The power of restarting. Here's the part no one talks about. You don't need to be perfect. You need to restart faster. The most successful people, they don't avoid falling off. They bounce back quickly. They don't wait for Monday. They don't wait for motivation. They remember who they are, and they return to the habit. That's the real skill. Not never breaking, but always returning. Make resistance your compass. Here's a radical thought. What if resistance is pointing to the thing you're meant to do? If something scares you, stretches you, calls to you, and resistance screams, not today, not now, you're not ready. That's the thing you must move toward. Because fear doesn't show up around things that don't matter. It only surrounds the edge of growth. So don't run from it. Follow it. That's where the real work and the real you begin. In the war, build the habit. You don't need to fight resistance with force. Fight it with systems, with simplicity, with consistency. Make the habits so easy, so frictionless, so obvious that resistance runs out of excuses. Stack the odds in your favor. And most of all, trust the process. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're right on time. Every 1% matters. Even this one. Final message. You've made it to the end. 10 chapters. 10 layers of clarity, direction, and momentum. You now understand that small choices shape your life. Not the big, dramatic transformations, but the daily 1%, repeated, refined, and protected. The person you want to become? They're already inside you, waiting for you to act. 1 decision at a time, 1 day at a time. No hacks, no hype, just truth. And if this resonated with you, if something in your heart whispered, this is it, then this is your sign to start. Start small, start messy, but start. And if you want to keep walking this journey, subscribe to Midnight Narratives. We create videos that speak to the part of you that's ready. Ready to grow, ready to shift, ready to become. This is not the end. It's just the beginning. We'll see you in the next one.